before I left, it feels like ages ago, before I left on my vacation, I kept talking about how important it is to have a relationship with Jesus. Thank you. And after I'm like, yes, I drove that home. Hopefully they're like, yes, Stephanie, we believe we should have a relationship with Jesus. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know if I told them how to have a relationship with Jesus. And I thought, I get frustrated when I listen to a pastor teach, and then I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. What does that look like? So I thought I'd talk about that. So then I got thinking about relational stuff, and like, we'll have the, I don't know if you guys do, but I have certain movies that make me cry like every time I watch them. And Steel Magnolias is one of them. Those of you who've seen Steel Magnolias, if you've not seen it, it's a story of, everyone who's seen it is like, yes, especially the women are like, yes, I know where you're going with this. It's the story of these 4 women who are friends. All the guys are like, I don't know what she's talking about. There's a story of these 4 friends, they're women. It's Dolly Parton, Olivia Dukakis, Sally Field, and someone else. Who is it? Julia's the child. I think there's another whoever is Weeza. I don't know what her real name is. Was it? Shirley MacLaine. They're like they're besties, these 4 women. And they just do life together. And I just love, like, the scene opens with a wedding. Sally Fields' daughter is getting married. That's Julia Roberts, is Sally Fields' daughter. She's getting married, and they're having issues with birds, and they're all coming to help. So there's that bonding moment. You see them getting their hair done together. You see them, like, running the church social and cooking meals together and having coffee together and doing an Easter egg hunt. Like, you just see them doing life together. And then there's a scene, the scene that gets me, the scene that makes me cry, is there's a funeral. Julia Roberts, spoiler, she dies. She's young and she dies. And Chris is like, what? I know, sorry, Chris. And there's in the funeral scene, it's the 4 women who are friends, and then Daryl Hannah's character, who's also kind of a friend of theirs. And Sally Fields is sad because her daughter just died. And Daryl Hannah's like, she's like a Jesus freak. Daryl Hannah becomes this like Jesus freak, and it's okay. She's with God now. And Sally Fields is like, I don't want her to be with God. I want her to be here. And she starts crying, and I start crying. And then in the end, you end up laughing because they're like, if you're sad here, just punch Weeza. And they like hold her, and like you're all like, it's a very touching scene. And I just love the relationship between these 4 women. And these women, they're not like, okay, we're going to get together on Saturday for 2 hours, and we're going to sit and talk to each other. No, they just do life together. They run into each other in the store, and they talk. They get their hair done, and they talk. Like, they go to church events, and they talk, and they cook together, and I'm sure they call each other when they're mad and upset, and they just doing life together. They're just having a relationship with each other. So when I talked about the importance of having a relationship with Jesus, I got to thinking, like, so what does that look like? Like, I feel like I do it, but I don't know. Like, we kind of inherently know how to have a relationship with people. But how do we have a relationship with God? And I think it's got to be just like it is with people. So I started looking up, like, signs of a good relationship. And there's about 85 there's a million websites, like the 7 best things in a healthy relationship, the 12 best things in a healthy relationship. And I've been reading all these lists. Open communication, conflict resolution, being real with each other, spending time together. And so I get to thinking, like, what are some things that we should do so that we can have a relationship with Jesus? And, like, it's all the same stuff. It's the same stuff that Weeza and, like, all those 4 women did. They hang out together. They're spending time together. They just want to be in relations. They're just hanging out. And we can do that too. We can just hang out with Jesus wherever we are. So I look at this verse. This verse terrifies me. Like, seriously makes me really scared. This is where I have to, like, say, performance, you can't be a part of me. But, like, in Matthew 7, they're asking Jesus, like, they're just talking about heaven and how you get it and stuff. And he says to them, many people will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and drive out demons and work miracles? And he's like, and I'm going to say, I never knew you. Get away from me, you evildoer. These people did miracles. They prophesied, people heard them and changed their ways. They drove out demons. I don't know that I can do any of that stuff at this point. So these people are like what I would consider like super Christians. And Jesus is going to turn them away. And he doesn't say, you didn't do enough. He says, I never knew you. So it's not about acts. It's about knowing God. It's about having a relationship with him. So if you're thinking like, and I get this way, this is where the enemy gets me. This is my spot that he constantly, his go-to to get me all wound up. You're not doing enough. Oh, you watch TV, how dare you? You sat and read a book, how dare you? And I'm like, no, but I have a relationship, like this is where I have to come back to. I have a relationship with the Lord, and that's what matters. Not how many people I save, not how many people I baptize. It's about my relationship with the Lord. That's what it is. So, I think about, I don't know about you guys, when I grew up Catholic, and so like I grew up like when I would go to bed, I would like, now I'd lay me down to sleep, okay, then I would thank the Lord for all the things he did for me that day, and I'd give him my petitions, and then I'd say my Hail Mary full of grace, and then I'd say my Our Father who art in heaven, and then I'd go to bed. And that was the way that I learned how to pray, was to say these specific prayers. So then I think about this in a real relationship. What if every time I want to hang out with Mel, I call up Mel and I recite a poem to her, and I say, Mel, I love the way you did this and this. Can you please give me this for Christmas? And I recite another poem to her, and then I hang up. She would be like, why does this person call me? This is a weird relationship. And yet, I was kind of and I'm not blaming my parents. This is the way they were taught. Like, this is how you talk to Jesus. You just say these rote specific prayers. And I'm like, now that I think about it, I'm like, that would be so weird. And I always think of, if any of you've watched probably no one has, because I'm probably one of the 5 people on the planet who like these movies. The cars that turn into robots. Transformer movies. There's one Transformer, and he can't talk. He can only play songs. Like he's got something messed up in him, and the only way he can communicate is with songs. And so like Bumblebee, yeah, he's my favorite Transformer. But like, we aren't Bumblebee. We can talk to Jesus, and he wants that. He wants us to come to him and say, Jesus, I'm having a rough day. He wants us to come to him and say, this thing happened and was amazing. Okay, he wants us to come to him and be like, I don't understand why you're letting this happen to me, and I'm mad about it. He wants that to happen. God did not make us to be little robots to do his work on earth. And it says that here in John 15. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant doesn't know the master's doing. I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. God didn't make us to be little busy bee ants that like create stuff on earth. He created us to be in relationship with us. And we know that because in the garden, God walked with Adam. Like that song. He walked, and I think about how cool, like when I'm in heaven, God and I are gonna go dancing together, and we're gonna have lunch. I just want to like go for a walk with him. You know, like, it's not that he's sitting up there like, well, she did this, I want you to do this. He doesn't have a checklist we're supposed to be. He wants to hang out with us. And sometimes I think like, if I was like paralyzed and I couldn't do anything, God would still love me just as much. He doesn't, he cares that we do stuff, and when he says go do that, he wants us to do it, but really he wants to talk to us. He wants us at the end of the day to be like, this is what happened to me today, this is how I'm feeling about it. Like if I get angry at somebody, let's say somebody makes me mad, okay? My job is not call up my friend, Paula, let me just tell you what somebody did to me, what do you think I should do about it? No, he wants me to call up him. Because let's say that I get mad at Jamie, okay? And then I call up Paula, I'm like, let me tell you what Jamie did, and he just, and she's gonna hear my side of the story and be like, yep, Jamie's a jerk, and you're right. But Paula doesn't know Jamie's side of the story, but God does. So if I go to God, and I say, let me just tell you, God, and I rattle off, and when I finally, and say, what do you think about that? And he might say, yeah, he was a jerk to you. Or he might say, well, you notice he, whatever. His kids went home today. He's probably having a really bad day and just off today. Oh, yeah. Because God sees both sides of that story. And I have to remember that wants to talk to us. He wants, when you're driving to work, be your co-pilot. You're watching the Bengals. He wants to sit and watch the game with you. Just be careful if you yell at the refs. Remember, they are his kids too. Okay, so I just want you guys to try to think about ways you can, I'm missing a Bible verse here, ways you can hang out with God and have a relationship just like you have a relationship with your friends, your parents, your family, your whoever. Oh, this is my other point. God doesn't barge in. He doesn't just come like throw open the door and be like, let's hang out. Let me tell you what I think. He wants to be invited in. He has the power to literally blow the door off your house and walk in your house. He doesn't do that. He's not an intruder. He stands there and he knocks and he waits for you to invite him in. So if you're thinking, I don't know how to talk to God, I don't know how to hear from God, I don't know how to do this, the first thing you can do is be like, God, come on in. You know, when you turn on the car in the morning, be like, hey, Jesus, you want to ride to work with me today? Okay, like, maybe you imagine, like, I use my imagination a lot. Like, when I'm hiking and I sit on my tree, I imagine Jesus sitting in front of me. He wears khaki pants and a khaki shirt when he does. Not his robe, because that would be weird. And I'm just like, Jesus, what do you think today? What do you have to say to me? Like when I pray in the morning, I literally imagine God and Jesus walking in and I hug them and Jesus sits in an imaginary chair, because not one would fit in my house, in front of me, and we share an ottoman. I literally put my feet off to one side so he can put his feet on the other side and we can have a combo. So use your imagination. Say the words, Jesus, come on in. Jesus, will you talk to me? Jesus, I want to hear. Ask him questions. Maybe if you journal. Like, journaling is a great way to hear from the Lord. Say, Jesus, I want to talk to you, and start writing what it is you're thinking about, feeling, going through, frustrated about, happy about. And sometimes I write and then I get crickets. I get nothing. Sometimes I write and then the more I'm processing, things come out, and then I'm like, oh, he answered what I was asking. Like, by the end of it, I see that he talks back to me. Okay? And we learn how to hear from him, but the first step is we need to talk to him. Yes, he knows what's in our hearts, but we need to actually say, like, come on in. I want to talk to you. What do you think about this? Because if you don't ask him, he's a good listener. If you don't ask him what he thinks about it, he won't tell you. You think about, like, a good listener doesn't automatically give advice. They wait to be invited to give advice, and God's a good listener. So if you have an issue, a problem, and you want him in, you need to ask him what he thinks and invite him into that conversation. That's my last verse. It is. So, this week, if you don't already feel like you have a really good conversational, like, relationship with Jesus, I just encourage you to try at least one new thing. Have him ride to work with you. Take a walk and imagine he's walking with you. Sit down for your coffee in the morning and imagine he's sitting at the table with you. Journal and ask him questions. Before you go to bed, be like, Lord, I've got this on my mind. I don't know what to do with it, and maybe your dreams will help you work through it. Because he talks to us through our dreams too. So create an opportunity for him to know you, to talk to you, to have a relationship with you, just like these women did. They didn't get together only on Saturdays and only talk for 2 hours. They spent time with each other all the time. So think about having a relationship with Jesus just the way you have a relationship with your human friends and family. And all of God's children said, amen. If there's anyone here who has not offered your life to the Lord, you are welcome to come down either during the song or at the end of service. We will get you hooked up. We'll talk to you about that. I just want to create that invitation for us. We're going to do a closing prayer. Bye, online people.